What's up guys, it's Z here. Welcome to a new series on the channel where we're gonna take a look at decks that used to be tier 1 and we're gonna give them 3 imaginary support cards and see if those support cards can actually make them tier 1 again. We're gonna call this series Meta once again. If you enjoyed, then comment down below and tell us that you want us to continue and make more archetypes. And I think that it's a very fitting start to begin with one of the most fun favorite tier 1 decks that we've ever had in the game. So we're gonna take a look at Blackwings today. Now, a lot of these decks that we're gonna take a look at this series, some can just become meta again by getting back cards from the ban list, but this is not what we're here for. We're gonna give them new support cards that could potentially make them maybe not as broken as they used to be and unfair, but a decent tier 1 deck that could be healthy for the game. So that's the goal. So if you enjoy this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our upcoming content, and now let's get to the video. So the first card we're going to give them, let's say that any deck now in this day and age, what it really needs is Link 1. I think none can dispute the fact that Link 1 is what gives the deck really good power. We've seen cards like the Traptrix Link, Traptrix Era, that it was a really good Link 1 just for the deck. We don't want generic stuff here, just like cards like Needle Fiber, Anaconda. We don't want that. We want archetype-specific monsters that can be really good for their said archetype. So the card we're going to talk about, let's call it Blackwing Shaman the Progenitor. So it's a Link 1. It requires a Blackwing monster, of course. It's a Darkwing Beast, and it has 1000 attack and the arrow pointing down. So what it does, when this card is link summoned, you can special summon a Blackwing tuner monster from your deck. What this does is that it helps you facilitate monsters that you cannot really get access to without Black Whirlwind. I think the problem with Blackwings right now is that they rely too much on opening either Whirlwind or Simoon to search Whirlwind. If they cannot have that, then the deck cannot play. So this is a very reliant strategy on specific cards that doesn't allow it to become tier 1. So I think being able to facilitate monsters with other means is actually a really good first step towards making it a good deck again. Also, I've given it a second effect that it says if a Blackwing Synchro monster is Synchro summoned to the zone this card points to, you can target a Blackwing monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand. And of course, you can only use its effect of Blackwing Summon the Progenitor once per turn. So another problem with the deck is that it relies a lot of boss monsters. So in a good deck, in order to be able to win when it relies on boss monsters, has to go to the route where it can bring out those boss monsters without relying on too many resources. Let's take a look at Attic-Nisters, for example. The deck does have a really big boss monster, but before the support, it was really difficult to bring out consistently without using too many cards. But ever since we got the new cards, you can summon the Arrival Cybers very easily by just using one card. So this is what I'm trying to do with this deck. Even though this Link monster will not give the deck one card combos, if you open a Blackwing monster with either Kreese or Bora, you can very easily summon the full armor Blackwing monster very easily on the field because it's a level 10 monster. So you can summon Gale from the deck with this card's effect, then you special summon the level 4 monster you have in your hand, either Kreese or Bora, and then you can synchro into a level 7, use this card's second effect to get back the Gale you got from the deck, and then you get it back from the graveyard, you special summon it, and then you have a level 10 monster on the field right away. So this is the purpose of the card. It's just here meant to give you the cards you need without relying on Black Whirlwind, which is the first step I've took towards trying to make this deck competitive again. Now, on top of having a Link 1, I think the deck needs a little bit more going first power, because the deck is really good going second with cards like Raikiri and all those cards that pop, but going first, what it does is just summon a monster that is unaffected by card effects, and that's it. But in this day and age, a monster like that cannot really cut it to win games, especially with cards like Borrelsword and Access Code in the game. So I think it needs a little bit more searchable power going first, because yes, cards like Icarus Attack exist, although these are not as impactful as they used to be. So I'm giving it a level 7 Synchro monster. Let's call this one Blackwing Raindrop the Thunderlord. So it's a level 7 Synchro. It requires a Blackwing tuner and a non-tuner. It's a Darkwing Beast. It has 2500 attack and 2000 defense. So when this card is Synchro summoned, you can add a Blackwing spell and trap card from your deck to your hand. Right now, the cards that it can search, they're not very impactful because Black Whirlwind is not a Blackwing card, unfortunately. But the reason I gave it this card type of effect is because, of course, you can guess that the next card I'm going to talk about is what I've been saying for that going first power. So this card is going to be able to search the new card I'll mention later. So this is really good, but also I've given it a kind of unfair effect, but not really. It's the hand loop type of effect. You can banish a Blackwing monster from your graveyard to shuffle a random card from your opponent's hand into the deck, and you can only use its effect of Raindrop the Thunderlord once per turn. Now, I know that a lot of people are very reluctant with hand loop effects because they are mostly considered to be the most unfair type of effects in the game. We've seen it with the Smoke Grenade, with Infernobles, we've seen it with Levianir, but Levianir is still legal. And when you're trying to think about a deck that doesn't do really much, I think hand loop effects can only become broken when you combine them with other hand loop effects to try to loop multiple cards. Looping one card is fine. Even Monarchs can do it turn 1 with something like Erebus, and nobody complains about that because they don't see it. So I think that even though this effect might seem a little bit unfair, it's not, because you don't even look at your opponent's hand, it's a random card, but it just gives you more advantage, which is something that the deck needs. When you're trying to compare the cards you have to compare to what cards your opponent has, having more cards in a deck like Blackwings is important because the deck is very reliant on beatdown, so you need to be able to play around cards that your opponent is going to try to stop your beatdown, because let's be honest, beatdown strategies are the easiest ones to stop in this day and age. So this is why Blackwings haven't aged really well, especially since they got all of the support that was meant to do what the deck does, but not in a way that it makes it better, just more consistent in what it did, although what it did was not really that important. So this is why this card is here, and it's another beater, and of course I made it level 7 just to complement Shaman the Progenitor's effect, to be able to go into Gale and then go into Bora or Chris and then get back the Gale, special summon the Gale, and after you use this Synchro monster's effects, then you can sync it away with your Gale to go for your full armor monster, which is the boss monster you're still trying to get on the field as quickly as possible. So the first two cards, pretty standard I think for anything that you could summon your full armor monster. Now let's talk about full armor monster and what the main issue with this card is. We've seen unaffected monsters in the past and they used to be really good, but the problem is that now with cards like Boral Sword and Access Code, they are very easy to deal with, and because these cards are so generic, any deck can play them. So the problem is that yes, you summon an affected monster, but your opponent doesn't really care about affecting them with any card effect, they just run them over with a bigger monster. So this is the main issue when your deck relies on monsters like this. So let's give it a card that can not only protect it from battle, but also do something extra. So I'm going to give it a quick play spell, I'm calling it Blackwing Ascension, and what it does is that you target face-up cards your opponent controls up to the number of face-up Blackwing monsters you control, you negate their effects. You can only activate one Blackwing Ascension per turn, and if a face-up Blackwing monster you control will be destroyed, that will be either by battle or card effect, and I didn't decide to make it only battle because that would be too specific for full armor monster. I'm trying to make it as generic as possible. You can banish this card from your graveyard instead to protect your monster. So the first effect is to combo with Raindrop the Thunderlord, so you can have a really good searchable card that can be used either going first or going second. This is why I decided to make it a quick play instead of a trap card, to make it a little bit more versatile. And this card is the disruption you're going to be searching going first. You said it, you have at least 2 Blackwing monsters in the worst possible scenario. You have the Synchro monster and you have the new Link monster, so you can negate 2 cards. And I did not type monsters, I typed cards just to make it a little bit better, because there are cards like Droplets, like Dark Ruler No More that you need to be able to stop sometimes as well, and other maybe Floodgates or trap cards, you can stop multiple cards. And the second effect is here because what I mentioned, when you have your full armor monster on the field, if you can protect it and then keep using its effect to negate monsters that take control of them, then you can steal the game from your opponent because you have a lot of advantage. The problem is keeping this monster on the field because it's just a 3000 beater that is very easy to run over with any of those type of generic Link monsters that we've gotten. So this card gives it going first power, it gives it going second power, and it also gives it a way to protect not just full armor monster. This is why I didn't type to only be destroyed by battle, but also if your opponent tries to destroy your monsters with any type of effect, you can also protect them this way. And the second effect is not once per turn, so if you have multiple copies of this card in your graveyard, you can activate this effect multiple times to protect your monsters over and over again. So I think that all of these cards, what I'm trying to do and what I'll keep trying to do in this series is try to make very archetype specific cards that cannot be abused, cards like Anaconda for example, which was supposed to be Predaplan support, cards like Needle Fiber, which was supposed to be Crystal support, and all these other decks abuse. I know Konami is doing this not because of their ignorance, but because they want to promote cards and make them more expensive so they can sell more product, but I think this doesn't promote a healthy gameplay, so this is why in this series I'm gonna try to do just like what I did here and try to make the cards very specific and good enough to make the deck good again. So what do you guys think? Do you think that with these cards Blackwings could become a tier 1 deck again? I think that they would be really good. Maybe not tier 1 because the deck, just because of its playstyle, I didn't want to create a new playstyle, and in order to do something like that you have to make a lot more than 3 cards in order to change the deck's playstyle completely. So with just 3 cards I think I boosted the deck's playstyle a lot, made it more consistent, made it more resilient, and just given it more tools to fight the current meta. So maybe even if it was not a tier 1 deck with these cards, maybe it would be a tier 2 roguish strategy that could combat the meta. So yeah, tell me guys your opinions about this series, comment down below what other decks you would like to see from the all tier 1 decks that we've seen throughout the years get more cards so we can potentially make it good again. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our upcoming content, like the video if you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.